How would prime Brock Lesnar do in the UFC against the current heavyweights? Now that's an interesting question, because I assume what you're meaning is pre-diverticulitis Brock Lesnar, because when you look at how Brock Lesnar was performing before he got sick, like when you look at his peak performance, UFC 100 against Frank Mir, that was a pretty scary individual. Yes, I know he was probably pumped full of steroids. I would add though that Lesnar passed all those drug tests, but that was pre-USADA, admittedly. But a lot of people kind of go like, so let's take it with as it is. Like Lesnar, he failed like a drug test after fighting Mark Hunt, but he didn't fail any before that point. So why is everyone and people always just point at Brock Lesnar and say, yeah, but you used steroids the whole time. It's like, yeah, him and everybody fucking else. Like back around that time in UFC 100 sort of times, that was the Wild West. Everyone was using steroids. Frank Mir has served a ban for using steroids. After the fight with fucking Alistair Overeem tested 14-to-1 epitestosterone to testosterone levels. And an Olympic fail is 4-to-1. He tested 14-to-1. That is not all horse meat, Alistair. When you look at what Alistair looked like in that Brock Lesnar fight, you are not telling me that dude was not juiced to the gills as well, if not more than Brock Lesnar. Also, Brock got tested before that fight, passed it, and then a few weeks later, I think Overeem failed that test. I don't really understand how that fight wasn't overturned as a no contest. It was because one failed a test, and it wasn't Brock Lesnar. So anyway, going back to the original point. Sorry, I got off topic. How would Brock do full-on UFC 100 Brock against current UFC heavyweights? Well, the thing is, a lot of people will just jump straight on and say, no, he'd get creamed. He'd get creamed because he was shit. He's a fake ass wrestler and all that. Those guys are idiots, right? I'm not even addressing those guys because because they don't even know what they're saying, right? The bottom line is, yes, he was in the WWE, but if he'd have come straight from the NCAA, where he was a two-time Division I All-American, do you know what I mean? There would have been so much hype behind him still, and he would have come in a lot younger. But let's just stick with UFC 100 prime Brock Lesnar. How does he match up against current UFC heavyweights? Well, the thing is people would say, oh, well, Brock he hasn't got a chin. That's not strictly true, actually. He doesn't like getting hit, I'll give you that, but there's a lot of people that don't really like getting hit. They're not necessarily fighters, but it's not that he's got a bad chin, because he wore those shots against Shane Carwin. People will, again, they always go, oh, that fight should have been stopped. It's like, not really, because he was actually intelligently defending himself the entire time. He was never out, and every time the referee asked him to improve his position, he did so. And then Carwin had nothing left in the second round, and Lesnar won that fight. So credit to Lesnar for that one. And that was actually not prime Lesnar. That was not UFC 100 Brock. Do you know, that was not pre-diverticulitis Brock. Pre-diverticulitis Brock was a real scary human being. You watch those shots he's landing on Frank Mir, UFC 100, right? Because he gets him on all fours against the cage and he punches him under his armpit, and you see Frank's head just snapping upwards, and it's frightening. And then he gets up and he's snarling and drooling through the cage. He's shoving Frank Mir still. It was a brilliant spectacle. It really was. But that Brock Lesnar was a scary human being. And when you look at what Stipe was able to do to Ngannou, there is an argument maybe that Brock, someone the size and strength of Brock and with the wrestling acumen, would have possibly exposed that wrestling defensive hole for Ngannou. But the problem with that is, I still maintain that in this Stipe Miocic Ngannou 1 fight, the reason that Stipe was able to use the wrestling was because he tired Ngannou out by making him miss first. Now, would Lesnar be able to make Ngannou miss like that? I don't actually think that he had the head movement or the kickboxing to be able to do that. So that could have really, that could have been a problem, because you take a shot off of Ngannou and it's probably the only one you're going to take. So, but I wouldn't necessarily write Lesnar off in that fight because, again, you know, Stipe, he's a very good wrestler, but he hasn't got the size and the freak athleticism that Brock Lesnar's got. You watch those shots, those the way that Lesnar shot him for a takedown, UFC 100 Lesnar shooting him for a takedown was fucking frightening. John, you watch what he did to Heath Herring. He was just literally, the way he moved on the ground was actually really impressive. Just, he was so quick. John, you've got like a 300-pound guy who moves like a cat. You know, not dissimilar to Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall, actually. That was the most impressive thing for me, is just the speed of that kid. Anyway, back on topic. Sorry. Back on topic. So I think, yeah, okay, look, if Ngannou lands one on Lesnar, I think then, yeah, obviously that's going to be a problem. But it's a problem for anyone, not just for Lesnar. But if Lesnar was to just, you know, just go in and just be so fast, grab that double leg and put Francis on his back, I don't know what Francis does there. I don't think he has a good time, because UFC 100 Brock on top of you, landing those big fucking lunchbox fists. So, like, and just the way he delivered ground and pound was really impressive. Go back and watch that. It was just horrible. Like, he's holding Frank Mir's head above his own head with one arm, and he's like, he's holding his one arm with his armpit, and he's grabbing the other wrist with one arm, leaving that hand free. And they're not like fight-ending punches, but they're horrible. You can see him literally changing the shape of Mir's face as he's just digging these punches in, but he's holding both of Frank's hands with one arm. Do you know what I mean? It was like a schoolyard bully type thing. But yeah, so that would be... And again, Cyril Gane, like, he got taken down at will by Francis Ngannou. I would say that actually Lesnar is probably a better wrestler than Francis Ngannou. I don't think I'm out of my mind in saying that, especially UFC 100 Lesnar. UFC 100 Brock, as basically in a nutshell, what I'd say is, you know, if UFC 100 Brock, he would definitely he'd pose some problems for those top guys in the UFC's heavyweight division. Now, would he, you know, win those fights? You know, that's another question entirely. But you know what? It's like, but what I would say that, look, looking at the fighting styles, there are avenues to victory there, especially, like I said, if it was UFC 100 Brock, like prime Brock. You know, yes, he wasn't the most well-rounded fighter in the world, but what he executed was really good, really powerful stuff. And if he gets on top of anybody, that is a bad night. That's what she said. Anyway, moving on.